Welcome to Winning in the Margins with Jeff and Jamion. The margins are often overlooked, but where the best often excel in leadership or in life. When you see someone succeeding, it's often in these areas. Jeff, great to see you again. How are you?
Great, Jamie. And yourself?
I'm excited to talk to you about your why you do what you do, and to share a little bit of why I do what I do. I think this is going to be a great one for our audience.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. Why don't you kick it off, man? Why do you do what you do?
I've always been a lover of people. And, one of the things that I love about people is watching them, number one, share their goal, share where they want to go to, share their part of their journey where they want to end. But I often recognize, even with myself, that I needed help to be able to get there. I really enjoy being that guide along that journey, the person that sees something great in someone. Like I'm always telling people, like, you've got to like love who you are. And because I think that's so important, like loving who you are, because your strengths sometimes become your weaknesses, but your strengths are where you really have an opportunity to succeed. And so I've always loved, again, Division I coach, head coach for 10 years. I love helping someone push themselves in and out of their comfort zones and back into their comfort zone, because what people don't recognize about comfort zones are that they stretch, and so a big part of coaching, and I think this is a challenging thing for people to recognize. A big part of coaching is someone's going to come into your organization. You're going to see something great within them. That's why you hire them. That's why you recruit them. And you want to try to help them achieve to the highest level, but they're comfortable at a certain level. And to get to where they want to go to, they've got to expand on their margins. And everybody says they want to do that, but that's hard to do. And we could talk about this in another show, but when you're expanding, there's so much about hard truths that people want to ignore that you're forced to face. And so again, you start out with a comfort zone, then you go outside your comfort zone, then that new comfort zone, the uncomfortable zone, becomes your comfort zone. So you've now expanded, and there's all these kind of like levels that allow you to become your best. I really enjoy being the person that's along that journey on all those steps and helping someone, become the best version of themselves and define their overall goal, whatever it is that they want to become. I just love being there for them and helping them achieve that. That's my why. My why isn't about me. It's really about watching others become the best they can. I enjoy being that guide.
And your journey is a true testament to that, man. So I love being able to talk through this with you and share this message with the world. It's when you talk about your why, I often wonder why we take what you're describing away from kids at such a young age. We take that ability and when they're in classrooms, when they're on ball teams. You mentioned strengths, and at the end of the day, I believe that someone's greatest strength is their ability to take on a challenge. I often wonder why we're teaching how to play ball rather than how to love a challenge when we get a kid on our ball team. Why we're teaching math rather than how to love a challenge to get through the process. And I believe that's why most of us get watered down, because we're learning math, we're learning basketball, we're learning sports. I love wrestling, love football. And hey, Jamie, and I played some ball up until the 8th grade, man. I played basketball until the 8th grade, but it blows my mind in the way that we love ease and grow to pass that on within the people that get on the majority of the folks that get on our ball teams and within our classrooms and even within our homes. We somehow mistake that ease is what's going to fill the heart, when it's the challenge that's overwhelmingly what brings the peace when we understand how to take it on and come out of the other side. It blows my mind, man. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, some of that is knowing your physiology. Your brain is a defensive mechanism to protect you from hurt, right? So we would do this with our team. We would talk so much about this because people don't often understand their physiology. Again, your brain is trying to do everything it can. Like your brain doesn't recognize a loss of a family member versus a loss in a game. Your brain recognizes loss the same way. So you've got to almost retrain yourself to control how your brain is perceiving loss or gain or hurt or pain.
Yeah.
And you can do this through proper mental repetition and proper focus. And so I think that's really important. Understanding that is that my brain.
Jamie, if you don't mind, man, I'm going to cut you off right here. Why aren't we teaching this when kids are 4 and 5 years old? Why are we having to teach it when they're 18 and 23 and 37 and 46? Why aren't we growing champions?
Well, I just think that, like what I said there's going to be somebody listening to this and think about that heard that for the first time.
I like it.
And, it's often about helping them understand at a younger age and helping their coaches understand it at a younger age. When we all need guides and teachers along the way. So having someone along the way that has that as a mindset, I think is really important. I mean, I have a younger son who's 10 and we're growing him. I don't know if he'll be a professional athlete or any of that. I don't have that kind of aspiration for him. I want him to be happy in life.
Yeah.
So we're raising him to have this kind of emotional understanding and knowing how to balance it out.
Got you. And so what I took away there when you were talking throughout your conversation was that folks just don't know. And we need to share that message with them so that we can start grooming from 5 years old. But if you don't know, you don't know.
Right. And you can't teach what you don't know.
Right.
And,
right.
And we're in such a place in sport where we're so aligned with the result, but we're not aligned with the process that gives us the result that everybody wants to win. But what happens when you're aligned with the process of what that takes, you recognize that you can't win all the time. You recognize that failure is a big part of this process to become the best you can become. And so once you recognize that second part, failure is a big part of the process, it then becomes, well, how can I learn how to handle failure better? It's like asking the question beyond the question beyond the question, not just one question, and allowing yourself to dig deeper into an area that most people aren't thinking. And that's why I think the margins are so important. Because if you understand how your brain wants to function, and how that matriculates to your heart. I mean, like when you have something painful in your life that happens, you grab your heart hurts. That's why you have heartbreak. Right. You physically grab your heart. You can feel your heart hurting. And that's all a function of your brain wanting to protect you from that. Recognizing that your own physiology in it, I think is really important. And I think we have an obligation to try to teach as many young people as we can. And you get the opportunity to do that, which I think is really unique. And one of the reasons why I wanted to share this platform with you, because you're getting a chance to do it with the masses, with younger people, with older people at all parts of their journey. I'm dealing with only elite level athletes, but would love an opportunity to learn from you, who's working with people who are thriving to become their very best selves in other ways.
Right on. Yeah. And, when you talk about young kids, old folks, elite athletes, what I believe is that we all have a child inside. And when that disappears, that's when we struggle to get that last 5%. I want to go back. You were talking about failures. And those failures, that's where it gets muddy. When ultimately, I get the language you're speaking. You want to learn to fail over and over and over and over. But what you're really doing is you're learning to take on a challenge.
Yeah.
So the word failure might be a little much for somebody to understand in the wrong atmosphere, or if life got away from them one too many years and they learned that failure was a bad thing, or that scoreboard, that win or that loss mattered. If I'm playing on your ball team, my hope is that my coach doesn't care about the wins or losses, because there is so much potential for adjustment within a win and a loss that's necessary to take us to, you mentioned the tourney, you mentioned March Madness. To take us into March Madness, I can't embrace a win or a loss unless that win or loss is defined by what went on within that game specifically, that we did well, that we need to continue to do well, or that we were a degree off of where we should have been, and make that adjustment for throughout the season, on and on and on for the next game. And when we look at failures, dang, I missed my read, I missed my assignment, rather than just shifting over, rather than just, hey, take 2 steps back here, make sure you talk about awareness earlier, and I don't believe that was the word you used, but I'm going to talk about court awareness, what's going on around us. Well, I might not have seen the whole court. We might have practiced and practiced and practiced, but there was another image that popped up that I wasn't prepared for. Well, now that image is right here, and I might not have seen it until my coach comes in and talks about the adjustment. Now I see it. I continue to make adjustments. And so we're never failing. We're never failing unless we don't understand how that it's a challenge, and we have an ability to make an adjustment and then ride.
Yeah, it's funny. You know, I talk about failure in a public sector because people recognize failure. You know, they recognize that pretty quickly.
Right.
But in building our program, we never talked about failure. And this is probably better for another full show, but we talked completely about learning and building a complete learning environment. And so one of the first things we would tell players when they came, when we did our onboarding, would be, this is a learning environment.
I love that.
That'd be really hard for people to adjust to. If they were not coming from a learning environment, if they were only coming from a place that was results driven, they really struggled to adjust to a learning environment. Because I want to win more than anybody. I've won more than a lot of people, done more things than a lot of people. But I don't believe if you put the pressure on failure that you can recover consistently to climb that mountain. Now, if you put the pressure on learning, you're going to keep learning. You can only get better. And I do think it's about where you apply pressure to.
Right on.
And I
love the way you put
so many
that.
people apply pressure only to the result. The result's going to happen if whatever happens. You win when you're ready to win. But I wanted to apply pressure to learning. And sometimes that can take a little bit of time. Like if you look, people's, man, you guys had some tough years, but then we had some amazing years where we were unstoppable because we were able to build this environment where learning was at the premium. And the great thing about learning is, like, once I learn something, it's like you're adding to it, So it's like, once I learn something, it's like, oh man, now I won't do that again. I know I need to do this. Now you're building on a learned skill.
That IQ.
Right. So there is no weakness to being in a learning environment, but I only see weaknesses to being in a result-driven environment. But people lean on that because that's easier to say, well, the Lions are 1-5 today or 1-6 today. At the end of the day, there's only going to be one team that's going to win the NFL, that's going to win the Super Bowl. There's only going to be one team that's going to be excited where they are. And so if they go through the year and they learn everything they need to learn and they go make the playoffs next year and improve, then it was a success.
Absolutely.
And so having that understanding of where you are and building that kind of environment, I do think is really important. When we talk about whys, why do you do what you do?
Well, we've been talking about it throughout. We're missing the boat by letting a 5-year-old turn into a 15-year-old, turn into a 25-year-old, turn into a 50-year-old without understanding what you alluded to as learning, taking on the challenge, appreciating it, being grateful for it, and learning. And somebody may counter me. I will not change my mind on this till the day I die. This is one stance I have. I don't know what the limits are. And so I don't know what I can do. If I wanted to dunk a basketball, I'm not going to say I can't dunk until I spent one full year giving everything I had. And if I made literally no progress within that 1 year, I may say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can't dunk. But unless I'm putting my full out effort into it, taking on the challenge, making adjustments along the way, that's my why. Folks need to understand the challenge. There's so many kids in schools that learn that you talk strengths and weaknesses. And I at one point bought into this until I just saw too many kids coming in with a weakness here and a strength there. And we took away that mindset and we went to a learning mindset, and I'm using your words here, and it was take a right-handed stance to a left-handed stance, right-handed shot to a left-handed shot, right-handed stance in wrestling. I was talking baseball before, left-handed stance in wrestling. And at the end of the day, it's a challenge. And when we take it on and we make the proper steps, Kobe Bryant, an example of that. He spent, I believe he was 13 or 14 years old. It was the year, if I'm remembering right, before he got into high school. He spent the entire summer only playing the game with his left hand. Well, that's obnoxious, right? It doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Well, you know why. I don't have to say, I'll just say Kobe Bryant. For anybody that knows basketball, you saw what he ended up doing with his game. And at the end of the day, every single one of our sons and daughters have the ability to do the same thing. And when I say sons and daughters, everybody is a son or daughter, if you catch my drift. Doesn't matter what age we're talking about. So why? Because 5-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 25, 35, 40, we're meant to learn this, and we're meant to learn it as soon as possible because we're missing out on life. We're putting too many limits on ourselves, putting too many limits on the people to our left and our right. And so we've got to learn how to learn.